Hello, 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 and welcome back to Scene Bounds Live. I have travelled to sunny Swindon, where I get to work with the lovely John Lewis. But what I really want to do is I want to find out who John Lewis actually is. So let's welcome him in. John, welcome to your office.
Well, thank you for inviting me into my office, Jamie.
It's really cool. So, this is the joy, right, of life on the road now, right? You can just come in, you can set up anywhere, and no one knows that we have to be anywhere cool. But I do love your little space, and I see there's like inspirational quotes written on the wall, not even like near the wall, written on it. There's doodles all over the place, which I think is quite cool, and it's a cool little space, man. So what happens in this room? I mean, because obviously, so I want to find out more about who you are. Right? We've been working together now for not that long a time.
No.
And I know very little about you, and that's the idea of today, is to kind of like just identify who you are. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you end up doing where you are? Tell us a little bit.
Okay, well, I'll start in the past and the journey on. So I've always had a passion for helping people ever since I was a young lad. Always interested in people, their story. I was always one. There'd be a bully in the playground. I didn't like bullies. I'd always be the one supporting people who I felt needed support. And I think through naturally being an empathetic person and naturally being rapportful with people, I've always inquired about how people behave and how to get the best out of people, even from a young age.
Yeah.
So I feel to, as I've gone through the years, to be qualified as a coach and NLP Master Practitioner and other various psychologists and whatnot, it was just a natural extension of who I was as a person anyway.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I woke up one morning and thought, carpentry's always interested me. I always think in some roles you do in life, you don't choose to do that role, Jamie.
Yeah.
It chooses you.
Yeah, I never actually chose to do what I'm doing. It kind of came along. But so you're an NLP Master Prac, and I obviously I picked that out. But how long have you been an NLP Master Prac?
Fully qualified since 2019. So the college I went to, it was the last year before COVID, and we actually went into a classroom to learn it. And since then, it's all been online.
I was exactly the same.
Ooh.
So I did mine. Literally, I did my NLP course, prac course, and when I finished, I was actually ill, not realizing I had COVID.
Oh gosh!
And we went into lockdown.
Yeah.
Literally like 3 days later.
Mm.
And I ended up having to finish the last 3 modules of the course after COVID.
Wow.
So it was horrific. There was like 2 years between the 2 course programs. It was mad.
I was always grateful that I completed it in a classroom in amongst people, because even though I coach online now, obviously coach face to face, I feel the benefits you get from a modality like NLP, where you the energy and you're in a room full of people and you're noticing body language as well as kind of doing the do. I think to be able to do that in a classroom, I feel grateful, because the world's different, and I know a lot of these training providers just provide online now.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I run an online network business, right? So I kind of get the whole online thing, and it's about time and space and everything else. But actually, if I'm going to be honest, I think you can build a rapport face to face that you can't necessarily build online, and in a coaching environment, I think that's really important. So what were you doing before you became an NLP practitioner? Like, what did that look like? I mean, were you a carpenter? Like, what really?
Jamie, I'm terrible at building anything. I've always said I'm more into destruction than construction. And my kids will testify. My wife will definitely testify. Hopefully she's not watching, because there's a lot of stuff I've got to do at home. I mean, life before that, Jamie, was, again, you just met my children, 16-year-old boy, 14-year-old girl. Kind of, like I said, I've been with my wife since I was 18. She was 16. So you kind of build that life together. Then it's about getting on the property ladder.
Yeah.
And then you're on the property ladder. I'm still a young lad, so it's okay. You still got on P, you're going to edit this if I was to say something. Okay, we'd go out on the
I'm not editing.
Okay, we would go out on the drink. We'd go out on the drink. You know, in kind of those young teenage years into my early 20s, you know, you're kind of experimenting with life per se. So yeah, various jobs. I've been holiday rep. I've had a transport company, which I've still got a hand in, but this year I'm looking to step away. You know, various bits, because you get the mortgage, so it's about providing, paying the bills, and I think in amongst that, you know, I was just doing the do because it was just supporting the bills as well as going out on the weekends. But I always knew there was something more within me.
Yeah.
You know, and then the children came along. Fantastic. Being a dad for me is the most important role. So again, it's about making sure the kids are clothed, making sure the food's on the table, making sure the house is heated.
And this is not uncommon, right? So this gives, especially with men, and you know, I don't want it to be a gender typical kind of conversation, but men are in this constant rat race, this kind of constant role where they feel that they have to provide, right? And it's a lot of pressure around that as well, I think. So at what point did you decide, there's usually a significance, right? A significant event that says, okay, I'm now going to become a coach, I'm going to retrain, or I'm going to do something different. So how did that come about?
Okay. So again, I think internally, I always knew that there was more to come from me. And I knew being a career or being, you know, I knew I wanted more out of life for myself. I knew I had something to give. And I think the pivotal moment for me, so again, I'm 45 and I probably don't look at on the camera. You're supposed to.
I'm not editing. I'm not.
You put some hair on me or something, can't you?
I'm an amateur, mate. No miracles coming. No miracles.
I know, I'll put a wig on. So anyway, yeah. It's around the age of 37 because, you know, I love running. And I always remember
very overrated, in my opinion.
Thank you very much, mate. That's why I do it. I tell you what, this dinner I'm taking you out for at lunchtime, mate, it's getting smaller and smaller. It's just act professional.
Yeah, got it.
So around 37, again, I was more in tune to, okay, what does this future look like for me?
Yeah.
You know, what does this look like for me? I don't just want a 9-to-5 job. I want to do more. And like I say, I do a lot of running, and I was in a half marathon, and you know, it was quite a good level of running. And I always remember around mile 10, something happened with my hip, and kind of all my thoughts went to the hip, and it kind of then made me question: am I just focusing on the hip because the hip's hurting, or is this getting tough? So psychologically, I'm using the hip as a reason to stop or slow down. And it kind of,
I get that.
Yeah, and it kind of took me on this journey of my own psychology. And then I started studying sports psychology, and you know, and it just opened up this whole wealth of kind of new knowledge to me. Now, couple that with what I felt I naturally had to offer people, it kind of brought me to this point of, actually, I can use this kind of psychology to help people as well as myself with my running and whatnot. You know, can I make a career in that? Because that's how I see it. You know, can I make a career, not just a job? And then it just took me down this whole route of life coaching, you know, just stacking out NLP. What's NLP? You know, and again, from the age of 38 to 42, you know, it was a constant learning, but again, still being dad. So I didn't want to put every minute day, because I didn't want to miss out on my kids growing up. So it had to be a real kind of congruent way of balancing family with learning, because I didn't want to miss out on 4 years of my kids growing up and me not being there. So it's had to have been done in a way that has worked for all of it, as well as keeping the roof on top of the head.
Yeah.
So I think to answer your question, you asked me 15 minutes ago, and I've just gone on a spiral. I think it was that running. I think it was that actual running event.
There's always an event. There's always a pinnacle event where anyone changes career course, when anyone decides to set up their own business. There is always a pinnacle point, and it's because someone said something, or because something happened, and it usually is like, you know, I got my own business because I got fed up with working for people. You know, it was like, and yeah, okay, I woke up paralyzed, but that actually wasn't the pinnacle point when I went into my own business and changed my career choice. That pinnacle point happened because of something else. So There's always, and it's literally always that pinnacle point. So who do you like? How do you help people? What does that look like? Very briefly, because I have put it in the show at some point.
Oh, really?
But yeah, but just briefly, like, so you're working in that mind space. What is it you actually do?
So I mean, where we're sat, this is like this is where the magic happens. If I'm working on a one-to-one basis, a client will be sat where you are, or a client will be sat here. We work on the outcome we're looking for from the session. That might be part of a bigger goal beyond just the session. And then what we do through coaching and NLP is kind of structure and navigate their route, helping them resource themselves, whether that's mentally, emotionally. This is why NLP is fantastic, because it gives me a great lot of psychological tools to help them to overcome things that may be stopping them from being on that path. And I think by offering someone the safe space here, especially men, because I coach women, I coach young people, but again, I've seen a trend in men, especially successful men.
Yeah.
They're top of the tree in their business, if I can use that terminology. But because they're top, they have no one beyond that to actually talk about their next steps or their own worries.
And they get lonely. It's a lonely space.
It is a lonely space.
It is very lonely when you're on top of the tree. And I've experienced that. Like, like my friends, I can talk to my friends, but I can't talk to my friends about everything because they don't get it.
Yeah.
And you talk to other business people, but you don't want to talk to other business people because you don't want them to think that you're failing. So you don't. And I've got business partners, and I don't necessarily talk to my business partners. So I don't want them to think I'm letting them down.
Yeah.
So you're in this kind of this whirlwind, and you do need someone to kind of go, can I just be honest?
Yeah.
Can I just tell you how it is?
Yeah.
And it's a real treat to find that space. Look, I do have to end the show. I know, right? But don't worry, because we're going to be back on very, very soon, where we're going to continue this story. So it's going to be a bit of a 4-part episode with John, as is with all of our guests. But I think the next time we come online, we're going to be talking about how John can help you individually overcome the challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis. So definitely tune in for that. John, thank you for your time. It's been an absolute joy.
Thank you, sir.
I love being here. It's a great space. I feel calm already.
Good.
So what we'll do is we will catch up with you very, very soon. So until next time, take care.